This is absolutely ridiculous as the Marco Rossi trade rumors continue to heat up and Bill Guerin evaluating multiple options. One blockbuster deal was proposed by a writer involving another young forward from the New York Rangers. We have to dive into this massive trade, the likelihood of it, and the framework that could actually turn out to be a real good-looking trade for Minnesota. But it's not just that we got to talk about. We have another report from Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects indicating what Minnesota's plan likely is with Marco Rossi in terms of a trade, and it's not for the player that you might think. We have to dive into a bunch of great stuff coming up on this episode of Wild Dive. Just quick reminder though, guys, still 80% of you not subscribed to the channel. We have videos coming all off season long, heading into the spiciest time of year. I know you want to stay up to date, so if you want to, hit that free sub button down below. Kirk, let's dive into first what Cam Robinson and Elite Prospects had to say, because I think this is this is what I think we've been talking about a lot more recently with these rumors that a Rossi trade package, the player in return, might not be the level of player we want, though again, this blockbuster coming up later. Anyway, just stick around for that. It's crazy. You're probably going to hate it, but I'm excited. Regardless, what he said is don't expect a blockbuster return just for Rossi, that is, of course. Instead, watch for the Wild to do a two-part deal. Move Rossi for futures, then flip those or other assets for a center they believe can fit their demands more actively. And as of late, Kirk, there's been more talk about offer sheets. There's been more talk about trading Rossi for, teams that have the kind of center Billy Guerin is looking for. They're probably not going to trade that type of center for a Rossi type of center. But maybe there are teams that'd be willing to trade futures for a Rossi type of center. Bill can flip them. To me, this is actually looking more and more likely as every single day goes by.
Yeah, there's been a lot of reports recently about the Wild, coming into this and looking at a different option for Marco Rossi. A lot of teams are not being really willing to give up a bigger center for a smaller center, like you said, and more, it's really seeming like different parts of this trade are going to be coming into fruition. They're going to be looking at different options, not as a strict one-to-one replacement. I think that is the best option because, Marco Rossi definitely is a player that a lot of teams want, but a lot of teams are very hesitant to give up someone they're already so confirmed on. They're ready to go with and willing to keep if need be. And it is very hard to pass up a guy like Marco Rossi if you're any team other than the Minnesota Wild. So looking at this, I'm very curious to see how this will play out. Because when you look at this point total, of course, he had a great season this year. Wasn't really given the opportunity in the playoffs. Had he had been, we don't really know where we would be. But when it comes down to how we're going to see Rossi being moved, at least, I do like the idea of what Cam Robinson said here. And one thing I want to note about Cam Robinson as well, he is a bit of a sneaky guy when it comes to knowing the stuff around the community. And as I mentioned, with the Bruins on his side of things, he announced that signing of their coach, Marco Sturm, about a week before it happened. So this is something to keep an eye on. I think Cam Robinson has a real knowledge on this, and this is something that I really want to kind of take a deeper look in as we kind of go throughout these next few weeks.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, not just in terms of a trade for Rossi. I know he said a trade for picks, and I think that's what, in an ideal world, we would want as well. Like a trade that is worth more than an offer sheet. But again, if you look at these offer sheets, you mentioned the Bruins. They're actually one of the teams that could very well offer sheet Marco Rossi, but a plethora of teams could do it. And you get a first, second, and third for the offer sheet. If it turns out that you don't get the trade package you like, you can leverage those picks in this year's draft for something pretty big as well. So again, regardless of if it's an offer sheet, regardless of if it's a trade, this to me, Kirk, I think is turning into the most likely scenario. So leave your thoughts down below. How do you feel about that? Do you trust Bill Guerin moving Rossi for picks, flipping those picks for another great player to put down the middle? We'd love to hear from you, but we got to move into this one of the crazier trade proposals I've ever seen. Now, just a fair warning, brace yourself here. Because I think most of you are probably going to say, this is not going to happen. That's fair, but I want to twist this into a bit of a framework here. So this comes from Hockey Wilderness, and it's a fun website to go take a look through. And we'll link this particular article down below. Very well written. There's lots of comments, lots of decent reasoning. We'll just dive into this trade. Again, brace yourself. So here's what the trade could look like. Now, again, this to me, never going to happen. But what I want to focus around is not Rossi, Brodin, Gaudreau, Height, spot check, Carson Lambos in the 2025 second for Lafreniere, Trocheck, Keandre Miller, Chris Kreider, 50% retain a first round pick and a third round pick. No, not that. That's too much. That's insane. But a Rossi for Lafreniere framework, Kirk, is something that I think I haven't really considered before. But Lafreniere kind of fits that bill as well as maybe he needs a bit of a change of scenery. Another team might value him more than New York, give him more opportunity. Marco Rossi, I think he feels maybe another team could give him more opportunity in his camp, at least for sure. this to me, it starts to get interesting because the Rangers, as Elliot Friedman has said, they're considering an awful lot of things. After the season they had last year, there are very few things that are off the table. Drury has got a lot out there, and he basically wants to know if you want to talk to them about something, just reach out. He's got to know everything that's on the table for him, and Lafreniere has been in a lot of trade rumors, Kirk. My first reaction to something like this, though, a Rossi for Lafreniere move, my first reaction is, okay, it makes sense. Makes sense from both sides, but also I don't want it. I feel like Lafreniere is just not what I would want in a Rossi return. Kirk, I don't know about you. How do you feel about Lafreniere? I just feel like there's not enough shown from him for me to ever really consider that he is actually an upgrade over Marco Rossi long term.
Yeah, I completely agree, because in my mind, when we're looking at a guy like Marco Rossi compared to Alexis Lafreniere, they're two of the same players. Alexis Lafreniere, not really given the option in New York. Rossi, not really given the option in Minnesota. But we see a bigger sample size from Lafreniere. He's a bigger player. It kind of seems like Minnesota would want. But when it comes down to it, they're the exact same situation where he has not lived up to where he was supposed to yet. We still could see in a different scenario him do it, but I'm not confident in saying that he will be able to. And looking at his contract, he's getting around what Marco Rossi wants. And now you kind of compare it to that. If you don't believe in Marco Rossi, I don't know why you could believe in Alexis Lafreniere as well. You know, if they're kind of given that same scenario, you can't be willing to just go out and say, hey, I think Alexis Lafreniere will be better because he's had a few more games. He's already got that contract done. Even with the Rangers, a pretty good team and playing on, the second, third line whenever he needed, he still is showing the exact same thing that Rossi had done, just more of the less, I guess we could say.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting with him too, because Kirk, like when we look at this, first of all, his career high is 57 points, which is less than what Rossi put up last season. Just wanted to say that. But there's more evidence for Lafreniere being a 15 to 20 goal, 40 to 50 point guy than there is that near 30 goal and unbelievable play. He was a great player in the playoffs there, 14 points in 16 games, 8 goals there. It was really, really good. But again, I think the contract, like, it was signed with the hope that, oh yeah, he was the first overall pick. He's 6'2", he's big, he has that 28-goal season. It's like he's finally going to turn it around. But that Rangers team was also loaded with talent. 120-point Artemi Panarin, 77 points from Trocheck, 73 points from Adam Fox, 76 points, I think, from Mika Zibanejad. And yes, Rossi did get time with the first line as well on a great Minnesota team, but not really near the level of where those Rangers were, especially in terms of players that could take the load off, or you can put out Lafreniere where, like, against lesser lines, stuff like that, and you can even play him with good line mates. I mean, look, again, this framework, there's certain guys I wouldn't mind from the Rangers. Like, to be honest, Vincent Trocheck, I'd be all for someone like that. Career 54% on the faceoff dot, I believe 59% last year, if I'm not mistaken. Very, very high. Maybe not 59, maybe a bit lower, but he was one of the top in the NHL. Like, that kind of guy, I think, fits the Wild. But first of all, this whole trade, like, again, maybe if you break it down into bits, it could work. But I think there's other guys on the Rangers, Kirk, that I would want before Lafreniere. And if we're talking a Rossi trade, I think I would prefer future picks rather than Lafreniere at $7.5 million a year.
Yeah, and there's options that, like you said, I think could make this work. And as Cam Robinson kind of hinted at, if the Wild are looking to have like a multi-set piece deal, that you can come into this, maybe trade for a few picks, and then if you have those picks in exchange for Rossi, use some of them on a guy like Lafreniere if you fully believe in it. But a one-for-one type of deal, or the framework of a Lafreniere for Rossi, maybe a few additions, to me, just right now, doesn't make sense. Because as you showed when Rossi's points came up with comparisons to Alexis Lafreniere's, Rossi's already has more points in his career, in his best season, than Alexis Lafreniere. Now, still a bit two sort of different style of players. Rossi's more that playmaker, skillful. Alexis Lafreniere has some pretty good defense in him as well, but I think the Wild need that kind of player like Marco Rossi is, but someone who has shown that they've been able to keep that consistency up, and maybe at a bit of a cheaper price that Bill Guerin wouldn't mind going at, rather than just signing a little over a Matt Boldy price. So, I think there's a lot of options. There are certainly ones that we could see with the Rangers in specific, as you said, Vincent Trocheck, a very interesting player, which nobody's really safe on the Rangers, I think, is something that we can say. So you never really know. I mean, that's, as we mentioned as well, this trade is absolutely ridiculous, but there's some pieces in me making it seem like some of these players could be involved in some sort of deal, whether or not it be Rossi for Lafreniere.
Yeah, there's some stuff. There could be some interesting things. And look, Minnesota's looking to bolster the lineup next year. And again, another thing too, Lafreniere's just not a center. Like, that's another big thing. But you did mention the bigger body, the better defense. That is important. But again, I don't know if it's $7.5 million important if you don't want to sign Rossi to 7x7. But look, we're open to all kinds of talks. While Lafreniere for Rossi framework is still probably not likely, are there any other players from the Rangers that you would like? With these reports coming out that they're willing to list on anything, even a name like Trocheck could be very interesting. We'd love to hear your thoughts down below, because that'll do it for this episode of Wild Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in every single day. I'm Josh Goss, my co-host Kirk Day. We'll catch you in the next one.